Welcome back, you beautiful people. In this episode, I want to show you guys how to use Git. Git is a really super popular version control system that keeps track of your coding changes, and it's super popular. So it's probably a good idea to learn how to use Git. Before we begin, I just want to remind you guys that I have my website rthdonline.com, where you can see all of these videos as well as the additional transcript and additional files that I would have used when I did these videos. So please check that out. Please register. It's free. And with that being said, let's get over to Git. I'm in VS Code at the moment, and I hope that you check out the video on setting up VS Code. I'm connected remotely to one of my servers, and as you can see, I have the terminal open and I have the Explorer open, and I need to show you GitHub because we're going to be using GitHub to do this. And so the first thing we need to do is actually create a repository. Now, basically, a repository is where you're going to store all of your data. So you need to create that before you can then clone it on the command line. Okay, so you're going to need Git on your command line as well. In this case, this server already has this. Okay, so I'm going to assume that that is already installed. If not, you can check that out on their website and how to install it. So just head over to GitHub, and I'm going to create a new, once you have an account and you log in, I'm going to create a new repository. And here it's going to ask me the name of the repository. I'm just going to name it, Git demo. That should be fine, Git demo. And I'm just going to put a description. This is a Git demo. And you get the option to choose between public or private. In this case, I think this one, it's okay to be public, but you can always, most of my repos are actually private. So I'm going to create, I'm going to use a private one. Okay. And now it asks you if you want to create like a README file. You don't have to do this, but if you do, this will create a fairly empty file that you can edit. And so I'm just going to show you guys what that would look like. And that's all. You can ignore the rest of stuff and just click create repository. And there we go. So what we have here is a repo with one file in it. Okay. And what you're going to do is, in order to work with whatever is in this repo, which is just a single file, we need to clone this repo onto our server. Now, if you have Git on your machine, then you can clone it directly onto your machine and then edit it. Like, for example, if you're running Ubuntu or whatever, you can do this on your actual local machine. But this here is actually my remote server. Okay. So with that being said, we go back to the page and we go to code, and here you should see under HTTPS, gotta copy this. So you can click this copy sign button, and once you have that, then you go to the command line, and I'm already in public HTML. I would have discussed this a little bit with XAMPP. So basically, public HTML allows any page that you create in here to be accessible over the internet. But for all intents and purposes, whichever directory you're in, it's totally fine. You can do it. So just git, the command is git clone, and then you paste in that URL. Now, in my case, because this is a private repo, it's going to ask me for my username, and it's also going to ask me for my password. And let's hope that that password doesn't get shown on the video. But my username is shard@gmail.com. So it's going to be your email address, and your password is going to be your token. So GitHub has a token system that creates a long token that you have to paste into here in order to get it to download the repo, the empty repo that we just created. Okay, so I'm going to do that and then we'll come back. Okay, so I pasted it in. You didn't get to see the actual password, which is good. I'm going to press enter now, and hopefully with the correct, because I entered the correct password, it does this. It's basically going through all the objects in the repo and downloading it. So now that we have it downloaded, as you can see, there's now a Git demo directory that has been created for us. And inside of there's a readme.md file, just like what we saw here, readme.md file. So now this is downloaded to your server or your local machine, and then you can begin to do your edits. Okay, so the first thing that I want to show you is that if I go to the command line here and I go to the directory git demo, now I can also see readme.md. So I'm using some of the commands since we want to discuss, the commands. Okay, so the first thing was to git clone, and now let's do an edit really quickly, and let's update our repo. So in this readme file, I'm going to open it up, and it says this is a git demo, and I'm going to put in here that this was created by RTHD. Awesome. So I'm going to save this. And now that I've saved this, we need to make sure that we update the repo. Okay. So the first thing is, because this readme has already been added to the repo understands that anytime I update it, it's going to keep a track of the updates. So you can actually type this command git diff to see those updates. So remember, we added in this line. So if you type git diff, it should show you some, it looks a little bit complex, but it shows you that it added, you see this plus sign, it added this line. This is just stuff, you don't have to remember this stuff. It's just going to give you an idea, for example, if your latest updates have been pushed or not. So in this case, it's not been pushed. So that's why it shows that is going to change this line. So once we've added a line to a file that Git already knows, we need to commit that change. Okay, so in order for the Git to accept it, we need to git commit and use -am, and then here open quotations, and you say a new line was added. You could put whatever description you want, but you say a new line was added to the readme.md file. Now that I click enter, it's going to ask me, because this is the first time I created this Git repo on my machine, I need to enter some of this information in. So you need to register the correct email address. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then you could put whatever name you want. Just basically just listen to what it's saying, okay? So in this case, I'm going to put my name, okay? Right, now that I did that, I have to do back that command, that git commit command. And here you can see it says a new line was added. So that's what the description was. And you see this hash, which basically responds, it gives you an idea of, we'll get to that. It's going to be easier for me to show you that on this side. Okay, but you see one file changed, one insertion is going to be made. So one file, which is the readme.md, we changed this and we added in one insertion. Okay, and now that we did that, all that says is that we made a change, and now we need to push that change back to this repo, because this is a separate repo. Okay, this was what we cloned, so we copied it to our remote machine, and now we need to push it back from here back to the repo on GitHub. And to do that, we do git push, and because this is I believe we could just do git push. Okay, because that exists already. So let's do git push. It's going to ask me back for my password. my username and password. And remember, the password is actually your token. You can't use your normal GitHub password here. You need to create a token. You can do that. It's under, you have to go to like, I believe it's settings, and then you create a token. Okay, but we won't cover that right now. So I think I did put the password in, and good. So what we saw is it wrote the objects, etc., and then it pushed it back. So what we should see is now here, okay, if we refresh it, we'll actually see 2 minutes ago. So we pushed a new file update 2 minutes ago. And as you can see, it says a new line was added to the README file. And then you see this hash here. So if you were to, let me show you first the change that was made. So if I click on this file now, it should say this was created by RTHD. That's what we added in, okay? And if we go back and we can actually click on this hash, right? If you click on that, it's going to show you where the changes were made. So when you see green, it means that something was inserted. And when you see red, it means something was removed. So, for example, let's go ahead and remove this line just to see what happens, okay? So let's remove this line. So let's edit back. Let's remove this line. Let's resave the file. And then let's commit it this time. So git commit -am removed line from readme.md. And now you see it says 1 deletion. That just means we committed it. Now we need to push this back to here. Okay, so we're going to do that. Git push. It's going to ask me back again for my login because this is private. And I'm going to push it back. And now it's pushed. So now, as you can see, we now have a new, this was the old commit hash, and this is the new commit hash. So if I reload this page, since I pushed it back here, I reload it, the commit hash is going to change, and it's going to say removed line from readme.md. And now if I read readme.md, the line has been removed, right? So now you see how that works. So that's the first part, to be able to make changes and to push back. But Git is really much more powerful than that. Git allows you to create what you call branches. And what branches do is allow you to work on the code, but do it like it copies the code for you, and then you make adjustments to that. So in case you make errors, you can always return back to your original code. And that's pretty good for multiple reasons. For example, if there are multiple people trying to update something on a repo, they can do that without, too much code clashes. There are times when you code clash, but it's going to make things much, much easier. So let me show you first how to list all of the branches. By default on GitHub, as you could see, there is a branch called main. Okay, so if I do git branch -a, it's going to show me all of the branches that are on this repo. Okay, and you don't really need to remember the red ones, well, at least the remotes. You just need to remember that there's a main branch, right? So there's really, in this repo, there's only one branch at this current time. So let's do back that demo, but let's do it by doing branches, okay? So we have this branch called main, and that has this read.me file, okay? Now, let's create a new branch, okay? And I'll show you how branches work. So the first thing you need to do is to git branch and the name of the branch you'd like to make. So I'll say, let's call it first adjustment. There. So I created a new branch. And now if I do that git branch -a again, it should list all of the branches. And now you see first adjustment is there. Okay. But notice that we have an asterisk here. So we're currently in the main branch. Okay. So now that we created this first adjustment branch, I just realized that I spelled it wrongly. So I'm gonna delete it quickly and do this over just really quickly. Okay, let's do it back. So we're gonna create git branch first adjustment. Okay, and then we list back the branches by saying git branch -a for all. Okay, so that's what that @-a does. So now we see that we're in main as before, but we want to now go into our created branch, which is first adjustment. So now we need to check out git space check out first adjustment. Okay, so it says switch to branch first adjustment. That means, I'm going to clear my screen. That means that if I git branch to show all, this time you should see I'm actually now in my first adjustment branch. Nothing changed except that we're now in a first adjustment branch. So main, think of it like this. Main has code in it, and now we branched out to first adjustment, which is a copy of main, right? So it has all the code that was in main, but now we can make additional adjustments in here without affecting main. Okay? I'm going to show you, so just stay tuned while we go through this. All right, so let's go. So let's make that adjustment. Let's make a new adjustment. Let's add a new file. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file. And let's call this file first adjustment. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it first adjustment. And I'm going to name it .md. Awesome. And I'm going to add the text first adjustment file. Okay, I'm going to save that. Okay, and I want to show you this. This is going to be error, but I want to show you this because it's super important that you remember to do this. Now, I want you to notice that on the right side, there's a U. Okay, and if you move the mouse over it, it says untracked. Notice it says untracked. That's super important because when a file is untracked, it doesn't get added to the repo. So we created the file, but we need to tell Git that in this branch, we added this new file. We just can't add the file. We added the file, but Git doesn't know, the repo doesn't know that we added the file. So now what we need to do is we need to git add this file. This file name is first-adjustment.md. First-adjustment.md. Now notice when I do this, what happens? Something's going to change here. Something's going to change. It's going to take it might take a few seconds, but it should change to A. Sometimes this doesn't happen with VS Code really fast, but we did add this file to the repo. Okay, but this branch, I mean, it's not pushed to the repo as yet. So we made the change by creating the file, we save the file, and then we make sure to add this file. You do this just one time so that the repo remembers that you added this file. Okay? Now, after you added this file, we have created this first adjustment branch. But that's on the server side. That's on our side. Okay? The GitHub side, it doesn't know that there's a new branch. So we need to push. As you can see, there's only one branch. We need to actually push this new branch. And so to do that, before we push it, we need to make sure we committed the changes. Okay? So we do the same command again, that commit command that I showed you previously. And in this case, I'm going to say this is the first adjustment that includes a new file. Okay. Okay, so now that we did that, we see one file change, one insertion made, and we see create mode creating this file. Okay, you don't have to understand that as long as you understand that now it's going to be added. But right now we need to push this new branch that has occurred. So to push, in this case, we need to do something a little bit different. We do git push. You got to type in origin. And I'm going to explain this, and then you're going to type in the branch. And so the branch name is first adjustment. Okay. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're telling Git to push this branch to the origin. So this here is our remote. This is our local machine. But this here is what you call the origin repo. Okay, the origin repo is always usually GitHub, okay, by default. So what you're telling it to do is to push whatever is here back, push this branch back to the origin server here, okay? And it's going to ask me for my login again. And there we go. So now it says new branch, and it pushed it, you see first dash adjustment. So now if we check on our GitHub, if we refresh, it didn't even have to refresh. It showed us that first adjustment had recent push changes less than a minute ago. And it doesn't update this part, but if we reload this page, now you'll see under the branches, you see this new branch, first adjustment. So notice that main still has one file. But if we switch over to first adjustment, you see that it says the branch is one commit ahead of main. So you got to think of it like you got a tree. Main is like the trunk of the tree. And this branch is coming out of that trunk. Okay, so this branch has an additional set of things like leaves, right? Which are the extra files, for example. And that's what this does. So it keeps track of those changes. And now, as you see, we have our change first adjustment. So if I click on first adjustment, you see first adjustment file. And so what's cool about this is that you can work on changes without affecting your main branch, right? And so another user can actually work on their own branch while you're working on your branch, which is first adjustment. And then after all of those changes have made and tested on your side of things, like this, in this case, we made our changes to first adjustment branch, then you can pull whatever changes you made here back into your main. And the whole idea is, you know, it's going to be you're gonna be able to manage your code easier, and you're gonna be able to not affect your good code until you've tested your changes beforehand. Okay, so since in this case it's not really code, it's just some files, I'm gonna pull in those new changes back to the main branch. Okay, so right now we're in the first adjustment branch, and I'm gonna list back my branches. Git branch -a, and we're currently in first adjustment, so I need to go back to my main branch. So to do that, we do git checkout. So it's always git checkout and the name of the branch. Now that I did that, when I did that, notice that my first adjustment file disappeared. It's actually like deleted, removed, right? Because now we're back to our main branch that does not have this file, right? So check this out. So we're going to pull in all of our what's in our changes in our first adjustment back into our main branch. Okay, and to do that, we do git space pull. We do origin, and we type in the branch name. Let me explain this one. So what this is doing is Git is going to pull whatever is in this branch name into the current branch, which is, in this case, our main branch. Okay? Now stay tuned because I'm going to show you the easy way to do this as well using VS Code. VS Code makes it even easier than typing all of these commands, but let's do it for a learning experience. Okay? So now let's do this. It's going to ask me for my login as usual. And there we go. So it said updating, and it updated the file. It said what it updated. And notice now we're now in our main branch. So if I type -a, you see we're in the main branch. But now I have my first adjustment.md file, which was in our first adjustment branch. It's now pulled into our main branch. Okay, isn't that awesome? So it did all the changes, it looked at whatever changed, and then it just merged it all together into one without us having to figure out where we made those edits and stuff like that. Okay, and now that it's applied, it hasn't been pushed. We haven't pushed it as yet back to our remote branch, our origin. So what we need to do now is we need to git push origin main, or we could just git push because we are already in main. Okay, so we could actually just git push, and this will push whatever changes we made here back let's try that back. Whatever pushes we made here, now it's going to update it here. So now we have first adjustment in our main branch. Okay? So you may be wondering, well, what's really the use of this right now? Notice that there's now showing 4 commits. So we made 4 changes. Let's have a look at what this shows us. As you can see, now it shows a log of all of the changes you made to your main branch. So it shows that we pulled in whatever changes into our main branch, and we can select to see which one of these, what the changes were per commits that we made. So these are the commits that described what was happening, and this helps us to keep track of the code, to see what's new, who did it. In my case, I'm doing everything, so you're seeing my name. But if you had multiple programmers or editors using it, you would see their names when they made adjustments. Okay, so in this case, let's look quickly at our last commit, which is the topmost one. And if I click on that, you'll see it says showing 1 change file with 1 addition and 0 deletion. So it brought in this file into main, right? And then it added this file, this line. Okay, so it's kind of 2 in 1 here. It just brought in the file, and it has this line in the file, and that's what it added to our main branch. I hope you understand it. Let me see if I can explain this really simple using some simple text. So originally, when you create a GitHub repo, it's going to have a main branch. Okay, and what we did is we created a new branch called first adjustment. Okay, and so we had this is the original here, or original data. Okay, we branched out into here. Okay, we branched out into here, and then we made changes, right, to first adjustment. And then after we did that, we took what was in first adjustment and we pushed it back into our main branch. Okay? And that's kind of what I showed you here. And there's multiple things you could do if you, again, if you had multiple people working on it. So for example, let's say that you had main and I was working on first adjustment, and let's say my friend also branched out and he had second adjustment. Okay. Then whoever finished first, they could pull their code into main. So let's say that John wanted, he could pull his code or push it into main. Okay. He could push it back into main. It's really pulling, but yeah. So to do this, you would go to, you would git, so to, yeah, so you would, so to do this, you would git checkout main first. Okay. So you would go to main, then you would git pull origin second adjustment. And once you did that, okay, then you'd have to make those changes, which pushes it back to main. So git push, because you checked out main, it's the same as saying git push origin main. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask me. I'm going to do this back over. I didn't think it was going to be so complicated, but it could be a little bit complicated if you don't follow really carefully. So please remember to go back through this video, and you should be good to go. So there's one more thing that I want to show you how to do, which is to delete a branch, because I think that's going to be super useful sometimes when you create or you make a branch a wrong branch name. You can do that by simply, first of all, we need to get a branch name. Okay, so let's say that we get branch -a, which is going to list all of the branches. Let's say we wanted to delete first adjustment. We could do that now by git branch -d first adjustment. Now it's got to be a capital D, okay? Make sure to do a capital D. Now that we deleted it here, notice though that this doesn't mean it's deleted here. It isn't on the remote servers yet, or the origin server. Remember, this is our remote server. This is our origin server. It's still here. So what we need to do in order to actually perform that on the origin side is we need to actually... Okay, I'm back. Okay, so this is the correct command. Git push origin, and you can't use a dash capital D. You have to use -- delete, and the first adjustment is going to ask you for your username and password if this is a private branch, if it's a private repo, sorry. And there you go. It deleted first adjustment. So now, if we go back here, it's gonna show us that there's no more first adjustment branch, but we already pulled that into here. And that's why we still have the first adjustment changes. I think that's the beginning of using Git. I hope that I kind of explained this a little bit. If I did, please make sure to like and subscribe if you were able to follow this. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm not a Git master, but I use it a lot when I do my coding. So hopefully I can answer some of those questions for you. With that being said, thank you so much for viewing, and stay tuned for some more videos like this as we continue our videos on programming and using Git and so forth. With that being said, I guess I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and see you guys again soon. Bye.